Do you still love me or not?
I need 7 outside.
Hi, welcome to day 16 of Octoberfest on Frankly Loverly. Today I actually wanted to start, I thought it would be the best time to dive into a small series of financial literacy that I'm doing where I break down things from TV shows just to give a semi-realistic spin. And I say semi-realistic because with a lot of these things I'm making a lot of assumptions and I'm drawing conclusions from the obvious facts surrounding what I see. It'll make more sense when I start talking, but I think you get what I'm saying. We have to keep in mind that these are TV shows. There might be some things, right, that don't exactly all add up or something that's not really realistic, and it's a TV show, okay? So I'm taking what the TV show is presenting and showing the realistic interpretation of what it could be because it's not even real. And so it's not going to be so much always personal finance, even though when I do a show like I brought up before, I was going to do Sex in the City. When I do something like that, it'll probably be more about each of them and like an interpretation of their personal finances and how things work. But for this first show, I'm going to go more on the business side for this intro video and then maybe go into a tiny bit of personal expenditures. This is a nice thing to think about when you do financial literacy because some of you might want to start a business and some of these businesses are in different categories. This category would be adult entertainment because we are doing All the Queen's Men. I just found out the director is Kim Fields. The writer is Christian Keys and J.K. Simmons. But none of that's what we're going to talk about. Today we're talking about the initial outlook on the business finances of Club Eden. So we can start off with location, right? So it's in ATL, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. I am going to assume, and this is what I was talking about, you'll see when I start talking how I'm assuming interpretations of what could be the reality. I am assuming they're in downtown or at least like on a little bit of the outskirt of downtown, given how the location looks on scene. Obviously, we're not going to see too much, but when it came to sizing of the building to get a price about how much, because she owns the building outright. She was a 49% owner, but now she is a 100% owner. I wanted to get a price on maybe how much the real estate would be, but I need to know the square footage. And I was just going by the size of the way it looks from what I've seen on the inside shots and then the little outside shot they show us. I compared it to a similar looking property called Cheetah's Lounge, and that is also in ATL. They have a total square footage and then they have the actual building's square footage, 34,565 square feet, and it sold in 1986 for $2 million. I'll put the inflation adjustment equivalent. We're assuming Cheetah's Lounge would be the same kind of size as Eden. So we're going to say that that's the square footage and that's what it could have sold for in 1986. As I said, she owns it outright. So we're talking about the number I gave you for inflation. That is what she could say her property could be assessed at right now. And again, we have to account for, we don't know if she owns the land it's sitting on. We're assuming she does. She still had to pay property taxes. Not property taxes is going to cost her some money. The asset is the building and the land it sits on, and that's its own separate thing. But now we get into expenses and how much things cost in general, like the very bare booty minimum. On the property on Cheetah's Lounge, it was either Zillow or Redfin, and I saw that their property taxes for Cheetah Lounge, all that stuff is public. They're also going by year, and I'm assuming it was like 2021, 2022, and then the taxes on that property, I guess the building itself was assessed at about $500,000. So the taxes assessed on it for the year were $23,376 in 2021, $23,355 in 2022. So we got $23,300 is a roundabout guess of how much Madam would have to pay in property tax alone per year. Now that is if they have a similar property assessment to Cheetah's Lounge. Again, I'm not going to keep saying that disclaimer. I'm just saying it again right now so that you keep that in mind as we move forward. And so this is what she's spending on property taxes. If you break it down, we're going to do everything, break it down monthly. So this is what it would be per month. Yeah, that's taxes. Now, other things you pay monthly or bi-yearly, like semi-annually. So twice in a year you pay something like insurance. People always forget when you start a business, part of that business is business insurance. And depending on the business, depending on the location, depending on clientele, personnel, industry, I think that that determines all the types of insurance that you might feel are necessary. I wrote down what I think would be absolutely necessary for an adult entertainment place in a city, like a big city center like Atlanta. Liquor license liability, or it's called liquor liability insurance, and basically that is for anybody who houses a liquor license or holds a liquor license like as a business. Part of your insurance is liquor liability, meaning you're taking out insurance in case your establishment gets held accountable for the actions that someone has while under the influence from liquor that came from your establishment. I go to a bar, I get pissed drunk, and I get into a car accident, or I hit somebody's like house or something. They're gonna sue me, my insurance is gonna take it out of me, and also the bar can be held responsible for selling me liquor to a point where I was so inebriated and then got in a car and did what I did. So all of us can be in trouble. So a lot of places have that liquor liability. Put these there. They're kind of like inside your establishment liabilities, especially in something like a strip club. There's liquor, there's food, there's dancers, there's people, there's rowdy guests, there's significant others that come in there and start fighting. You don't know what's going to happen. It's a nightclub. They're notorious for being rambunctious, and so then you add liquor and sex and sometimes drugs in the mix, and there's going to be a lot of potential for problems. So you want to make sure that your establishment is covered, and you don't always have to go full max. When you do like a basic liability package, it could be something like $100,000 that is paid. It's not your deductible. That's just what will get covered, up to $100,000. Sometimes $1 million or $2 million, depending on what inside the insurance package, is getting covered. Those are all things you would discuss with your insurance agent or whatever. So there are some financial planners that literally trained to make comprehensive insurance packages. They work with the knowledge they have, and they work with agencies and come up with these plans for businesses and commercial things. And this is part of the reason why, because it takes care of things like that. You've got your financial person or the accountant that is able to look into your insurance costs. That could be, honestly, if you don't take care of it properly, it could end up costing you a lot of money either way. Maybe you have an unnecessary insurance, even though some people might say there is no such thing as unnecessary insurance in this country, just because of how things can go. Moving on, good old standard property insurance. That kind of insurance is something that, as it says, would insure the property, mostly from things that could happen to the property. Now, that does not always include everything that can happen to the property. So, for instance, if they find out there's any kind of fraud, like arson fraud or any kind of flooding or damage or electrical tampering, then that's never going to be covered, obviously, because somebody did it on purpose. If they find out that, it's a flood, like flash floods happen in Georgia, but I don't think it's in a flood, like a super flood heavy area. That kind of thing is usually not part of property insurance. You have to get it attached, and some insurers will not insure outside of the flood emergency zone, just because I think flood costs for them don't pay out as well. Oops. Bless you. Then there's workers' comp. Now I'm giving you the big basics. In a nightclub, there could be so much that happen. One of your dancers, especially given the dance floor that she has them on, this dance floor right here, and they're wearing like slick bottom shoes and cowboy boots. Doing all of this, like there's flips, they're doing the most, so somebody can get hurt. You want to make sure you have workers' comp or whatever. Make sure that your employees, the people who work there, are being taken care of. It could be something simple as a bartender cuts their hand on a piece of glass, like a real, real deep cut. You don't know. There was something else called business interruption. So if your business had to be closed down for any reason, the insurance is supposed to take care of the money losses that you would incur. I think that's a good idea for a business to have. If people still have bills, there's still things that they get taken care of. The business still has bills, whether you're interrupted by natural disaster. Now that we're done with insurance, we're going to get into like the daily business real quick. I want to make this video kind of succinct. When I was trying to look up the financials for this strip club, like, you know, to see if anyone had like a random guesstimate of how much they made a night, I'm like looking at the stacks and trying to guess. I just found like a Facebook page. Is the internet taking everyone else to Facebook, or is it just me? I feel like every time I search something, it gives me a Facebook result. Anyway, I went to this one, and it was just like a Facebook page about people arguing about whether male dancers tip out at the end of the night. It was kind of annoying, kind of useless. So I started making some inferences just with information that I got from the show and from the internet. For sure, the show has a $20 cover charge. Then you have the drink prices that are standard in ATL nightclubs. It's supposed to be a classy place, so I'm always going to go on the higher end of the range. So that's where I'm getting that price from. Went to ZipRecruiter because they always have nice little like ranges of stuff, and I did male stripper salaries. The top earners earn $221,181 a year, which breaks down, as we said, monthly into $18,431.75 per month. That would be the main four: Doc, Midnight, Fuego, and Face. Them four, they have a whole separate dressing room. You know, they have all the VIP people that come to see them. So that's why I was like, we'll just go with the very top number here. And they were like, this is like the top literally 1% of male dancers. And I feel like Madam runs a luxury club. She's very demanding about her money. And it's only out of all the dancers she has in that club. And people are like, in the show, people are apparently begging to come dance at this club. So you're a well-paid dancer regardless of status. However, she has these top earners who get a whole separate lobby with a whole separate bathroom and everything. And it's only 4 of these niggas. I'm thinking they're making real, real money. One of the things they brought up in that Facebook thing was, Madam takes all the money for herself, and then they're living in 1-bedroom apartments and blah, blah, blah. They don't got no money. And I was like, okay, but for my video, I hear what they're saying, you know, show discussion. But for my video, I was thinking about how that's not really a way to tell financial literacy or financial wellness. Part of financial literacy is being able to assess your own financial wellness and maybe assess other people's financial wellness for yourself. Not so much so that you can judge them, but so that you're not making unfair comparisons on yourself or making unfair expectations of yourself. You're looking at this, you're seeing that they're supposed to be making so much money, and your immediate thing is, they don't live very well, Madam lives great, Madam's taking all their money. The club only takes 20%. So if they are the top earners, right, she's very demanding. We got that a month. Now, for 6 days, $767.98 a night. And this is after the house takes their 20% cut. Editing me here. I just realized that I put the tip out in the wrong place. So technically, we're supposed to be tipping out off of the tips that we get from the lap dances, the stage work, private rooms, etc. That's where the house will get a tip out. One, I don't know if she wants a tip out for everything or the total at the end of the night. Looks like she does total at the end of the night, which is standard in a strip club, I believe. It wouldn't be off of their hourly wage, which is what the total that I showed would be from. So that's just a note, but we're gonna continue as if, okay? Like when she had one scene where she's like giving them their money from the desk. It's like it could be anywhere from $700 to $1,000, especially if it's in like 1s, 5s, 20s. Like that gets really bulky. So like I said, by the end of the month, it would be like $18,000 because you're talking about a night, 6 nights a week. We're assuming it's 6 nights a week. But my point is, you cannot see how somebody lives and truly assess their financial well-being. because there are people, right, who are okay with inconveniencing themselves in the present so that they can be comfortable in the future. And a lot of times it's people who know that their career has a time limit and they're not going to be able to make this kind of money for long, but they do make it now. And so they don't want to spend it now. They might use it to invest. They might use it to just basically save for the future, for retirement, because their retirement can come in 10 years. Like, especially an adult stripper, you got about 10 good years before you might feel like you're a little old and phase out the game. And I feel like that starts like when you're legal. So 18 to 20 years old, you have your prime years, right, in your 20s, early, mid 20s. By the time you get to your late 20s, you can still be at it, but I feel like there's a pressure in certain industries to either get out or transition into a different part of the industry. So like maybe you'd become the talent, or maybe you'd become a madam, maybe you start your own club, maybe you only do private shows, maybe you go into doing movies or something like that. So as a stripper, you could leave completely, start a whole new business venture. But like, that is why people might limit how they spend, because everybody's talking about how, I haven't seen it yet where any of the male dancers live, but everyone was talking about how they don't live very well. Like, they live in 1-bedroom apartments and everybody's living like shit. And I was like, well, maybe they do it because they're saving for the future. They're okay splitting a 1-bedroom with somebody right now, making almost $800 a night, saving as much as they can because they know that they can't do this forever. That's why I'm saying a financial literacy tip is you cannot just outwardly look at people's expenses and assume you know financially how they are doing. On the flip side of the coin, Madam has a giant house. She has all these designer clothes. She drives this Mercedes-Benz truck, which was upwards of almost $200,000 for the basics. I just changed the basics according to what I could see internally and externally on the truck. But we also know that Madam has her hands in a lot of things. We could say that she is making anywhere between let's see, she had the four principal dancers, we should say. Principal dancers alone. We didn't even count all the junior dancers she has at this club. The money she gets paid. But like I said, there's costs in the business, right? Lights on. I couldn't even get into how much her electric bill might be. That is a lot harder because you'd have to find out what the wattage is in Georgia. If I find out, I'm going to put it here. And then you have to assume the amount of wattage that they use. Have you seen this light show that they do here? You know the electricity bill is crazy. So that's our initial breakdown. I want to keep going as more things get revealed, but that is today's lesson, where even though it sounds like a lot of money, it is. Even if all this sounded like a lot of money that could be made in the nightclub industry, especially on the dancer side, and you're wondering, why can't these dancers get together? One, because there's certain ways you never know how anybody's doing. It may look like, oh my God, well, Madam's doing well. But obviously, like I was saying, all of that might not be Eden money. You understand? That might be other stuff money, especially long time money, because she's clearly the brain and the muscle, even though she also has additional muscle. She's not afraid to get her hands dirty. So there's a lot of extracurricular activities that might lead to her being able to showcase it in her material surroundings. So you can't just look at it and be like, she's taking all the money from the boys. She is taking money from the boys, but it looks to me like she has the money she's had, and then there's the club's money. And that's why the club's able to keep up how it looks, its opulence. So, again, you can't judge financial wellness just by the looks. You really have to break it down, and then even then you don't know. Like I said, I even made all these assumptions for the numbers in this video. But that was the lesson behind the initial outlook today. Don't judge a financial book by its cover, because circumstances. All right? So, thanks for watching Frankly K, where awareness and clarity means power. And don't compare yourself just by looking at what's going on. Don't compare yourself. Just think about what you need to do and how you want to do it financially, and stay steady on your path. You don't have to keep up with anyone. You don't have to prove you're making money. Even if you're making more money now than before, you don't have to look it. You don't have to look it unless you want to, unless that's part of how you want to live your life. Do not think that you have to up how you live right now just because you started making more money, especially if you have maybe a long goal in mind and it causes a little friction for you to be like, okay, I need to save this, but you feel like you have to spend it so that you can show people you've been making money. Don't ever feel that way. So all them boys, they can live in their 1-bedroom apartment even if they're making $18,000 a month. And 1-bedroom apartments in Atlanta are apparently about $1,000 to $1,200 for about 700 square feet. They can live there and make $18,000 because, they want to. All right. Also, you could be living in that place because you make terrible financial decisions. All kinds of reasons why they might be living the way they live and still make lots of money at Eden nightclub, okay? So that is that. And thanks for watching. I really enjoyed this series, mainly because I get to watch all the Queen's Men, but then I get to look at it from this financial aspect, and then doing that little bit of surface research is actually really fun. So I want to keep doing TV series like that. I think I'll do outlooks for all of them, or maybe I should just stay in one series, or should I do it simultaneously? You guys let me know when I do these financial breakouts. That's what I'm gonna call this. Financial breakout of all the Queen's Men. The initial financial breakout, meaning my introduction to all the Queen's Men. This is the breakout. As time goes on, I can get more in depth with the more information I get. That's why financial analysts and financial planners exist, because you get to sit down and you get to talk about details with them, and that's where finances really make or break you, in the details. Okay? Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Do you still love me or not?
I need 7 outside.